It's the People's Voice on the Community Channel on TVU with your host, Adam Stevenson. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing pretty good, James. I'm doing pretty good. We've got a very, very special guest today. He's a dear friend of mine from Britain First in the UK. And just to talk a little bit about Britain First was founded by Paul Golding, I believe. And they have been quite a trumpeting voice about the grooming gang scandals in the UK. And somewhere between 250,000 to a million young white British girls have been victims of these Islamic grooming gangs. And Britain First has been on the front lines tackling that issue, along with the likes of Tommy Robinson right here. And they've been a loud voice about that, and they've been doing everything they can. And basically, they are tackling radical Islam. They want to tackle the immigration issues in the UK, put the British people first, create jobs for British workers, and look after the British veterans who have essentially been left behind by the United Kingdom's government in favor of immigrants who are getting all of the benefits, but the veterans are left sleeping in the streets.
Paul, welcome.
Excellent. That was an excellent summary by Adam there. He's very well informed about the situation in Britain.
Awesome. I was reading it right off my Britain.
Oh, I thought that was too good to be true. That was so well informed. You had me worried there, Adam. I thought you knew more than me. But I'm a veteran of British politics. I've been involved in British politics since 1976, which is, 44 years. I was involved with a party called the National Front in 1976. And I've always stood on the patriotic platform of Save Old Britain, really. Stopping mass immigration and realizing that mass immigration was about the transformation of our nation from what it's always been traditionally to something completely different, a global society in which the British will actually be pushed to the margin and ignored.
Yeah.
That's, we had another guest on. What was the gal's name that we had again? We had
Kate Fanning. She was the director for UKIP. Actually, I think Paul knows her on a personal level. Is that correct, Paul?
I've met her, but I wouldn't say I'm a close friend. But I've met her at meetings.
Okay.
Yeah. UKIP was a fantastic force in British politics.
Yes.
It got Britain the Brexit vote. It's released us from the European Union.
Yeah.
It's an amazing party,
Yeah,
fantastic party.
And she brought these kind of things up, and our discussion, went as far as the Commonwealth of Nations, and what it meant to be British, and what our common British values in the Commonwealth, and that comes from a multinational group of nations, and there's lots of British people throughout the Commonwealth from every nation, every tribe, every tongue, every race, right? So we're not talking about people that share our values when we're talking about the things that are on what we're going to talk about, right? There's people that come to Britain who adopt the British values and are appalled at what's happening, and they come from all over the world, and they're good British people, and they're in Canada, and they're in the UK, and they're in Australia, and they're everywhere. So now, let's move into the difficulties that you guys are engaging. Sounds like street by street.
Yeah, because it's not only about values, you see, it's about numbers. I mean, a society can absorb a certain number of people and integrate them and can carry on in its traditional form. But once you get uncontrolled mass immigration and an explosion in multiculturalism, the actual indigenous society comes under threat. It's in danger of actually being destroyed. It's not just about maintaining abstract values. It's about maintaining us and our nation as well.
Yeah. Multiculturalism has definitely failed us as a society. Honestly, I don't want to live in a multicultural society where we have one set of values pulling us in one direction and another set of values pulling us in another direction and another set of values pulling us in another direction. I'm happy to live in a multi-ethnic society. That is wonderful. I love people of all races and creeds. But when it comes to multiculturalism, well, you know, these people think this is what's right and wrong. We think this group of people thinks pedophilia is okay. This group of people doesn't. It just doesn't work. You end up with all kinds of problems, and you end up with essentially a kind of a culture clash, and it, you know, it works for a little while, but over time each culture starts to develop their enclaves, and then it just becomes an explosion. If you look at other countries who have tried things with multiculturalism in the past, India is a perfect example, right? If you're a Christian in India and you live in one of the Christian provinces, you don't go to one of the Islamic provinces because you'll be killed. You don't go to one of the Hindu provinces because you'll be killed or beat up. And it goes vice versa in the opposite direction too, right? You're not safe to go out of your enclave and go in.
Why is that?
Well, we had a prophet in Britain. His name was Enoch Powell. And in April 1968, he made a very famous speech. It was called the Rivers of Blood speech. And he had actually lived in India. And he'd experienced the communalism, he used to call it communalism, different communities existing within India together. And then it had suddenly erupted into a civil war. And he saw that multicultural societies fracture the unity of society and create competing groups. It's not just a cultural clash, it becomes a political war, which develops ultimately into a real war. And he warned Britain, he said, you're building your own funeral pyre, and that funeral pyre is now being set on fire, and Britain is in severe danger. And it's and I'm sure this is throughout the English-speaking world now.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I very much agree with that assessment, right? Like, it's just, how do I word this? Right? Like they just don't agree on certain issues, and it causes problems, right? And when there's border disputes over things like this in India, like Kashmir and stuff like that, right? Between the Hindus and the Islamists, and they're greatly clashing over certain areas. And there's been massive terrorist attacks and that thing on both sides, right? And
you have to have a shared identity to form a nation. There has to be
exactly
a common factor which links everyone together. When that doesn't exist, the people in a certain area will subdivide into their own groups and began competing for power and territory. We saw it in Yugoslavia. We've seen it in the former Soviet Union. When these multi-ethnic, multicultural societies began to break down, civil war was the end product, and this is the danger ahead. You've got to be realistic about that.
I've got to look at the the magnificence of our culture and where it's come from, and how it reached for a time.
I can tell you exactly.
Hold on. Not to rule the world, but to not even to govern the world, but to breathe life into it. You know, the British way of life. Hold on. And that came from and you know what, the people that from the origin of our culture stood against Rome. They stood against every tyranny.
Yeah.
And there's a time when they weren't a seafaring. We weren't a seafaring, and we went seafaring, and we reached our globe, and that's when the real magnificence of the British culture it realized itself. Okay, so now here we are in 2020. Here's my question: where's the UK with its space program? Is there anything happening? Is there any plan for the UK to get off? We're in the same spot where we were when the New Worlds and the Far East. It's the same time. Is there any leadership? Where's the leadership in the culture? This is what it's going to take.
The problem is for the UK was that we joined the European Union in 1973, and they took control of more and more of our society and our government and our wealth and our economy. And we had to follow their lead. They were imposing their will upon us. This was a bureaucracy in Brussels which was taking control of our country with the complicity of elements of our elite. Now, ultimately, we had to have a full-scale rebellion against that. We had to get all the populist forces. 17.5 million people voted to leave the European Union.
Yeah.
And that has been a tremendous battle over the last almost 50 years now. It's a bit like Alberta leaving Canada. It was a heck of a struggle, but we had to do it or we would have been destroyed by them.
Yeah. There's a lot happening with that momentum for Alberta to leave Canada too, with the Wexit party. You guys had Brexit in the UK.
Yeah.
We had a thing called Wexit here. Actually, the founder of Wexit, I've done an interview with him on this show. He's a very good friend of mine, Peter Downing. I meet with him quite regularly. And now the Wexit party has just officially joined forces with another separatist party in Alberta that was called the Freedom Conservative Party. And so now they are a unified party called the Wild Rose Independence Party. And the Wild Rose is our provincial flower. All of the provinces in Canada have their own provincial flower that represents each province, right? So
we had a slogan in Britain, taking back control.
Yeah,
we'd lost control of our nation to a globalist elite that were not interested in serving the British people. They were only interested in serving themselves and their own agenda. And we felt if we were to survive as a nation, we had to wrestle back the power from them. And that's been our struggle for the past almost 50 years. And we're on the verge of victory. We've left the European Union politically. In January, we leave it economically. And Britain emerges again as a sovereign, independent nation, what it was when it was in the Commonwealth, when the Commonwealth was formed, when we had our own relationship with Canada, when we were partners in the world.
Beautiful.
Hallelujah.
So maybe all of those things that we remember will come back. You know what I mean?
That's our hope. That's our hope, because they're worth bringing back. They were great things. We had a great relationship. We had an amazing relationship. My family almost emigrated to Canada in the 1960s. It was a great aspiration for British people to go to Canada. You were our brothers across the Atlantic.
But not the whole Commonwealth. We don't need the UN. We have the Commonwealth.
Oh, absolutely.
Forget the UN. The UN is a globalist, evil society attempting to rule independent nations by unelected bureaucrats trying to dictate what rules and laws they should live by, how we should decide on moral issues about things like abortion and immigration. The UN has got to go.
It's got a Marxist ideology.
Guys. At all.
It's got a Marxist ideology. The Marxists have taken over the UN and used it to destroy the nation states. It's our enemy now, just like the European Union was. It's our enemy.
On 100%, the UN was founded with good intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. They started with good intentions. Corrupt people saw the ability to control nations through this agency, and they said, let's infiltrate it and take control for ourselves, and then we can use it for our own political agenda, and that's what we see happening now. Right. And it's really scary, you know, and they use all this nice sounding wording. But if you really read the United Nations Sustainability Agenda and read it very closely between the lines, there's some scary stuff happening in there, right? Like giving themselves rights and powers to basically invade nations. And you know, the UN Sustainability Agenda on abortion is just insane. Any woman anywhere has all of the right to end a pregnancy any place, any time, for any reason, and at any point in the pregnancy. Who is the United Nations to tell an independent and sovereign country what their laws should be on killing children?
It is an excellent topic. It is an excellent topic to contrast with the Commonwealth. It's been awesome having you, Paul. You're an intellect and a great political savvy. You're a patriot, a loyalist, and an international British subject. That's what I'm saying. We have to keep careful about the internationalists because we are, as British people, international people. Because we have.
Above all else, though,
Amen.
I'm a Christian, and I hold on to traditional Christian values and morals. This is why I really dread the United Nations, because it's an attack on Christian morality. They won't attack the Islamic nations and their morality, but they're on a full frontal attack on all our Christian. The Ten Commandments, they want to overturn them. One of the Ten Commandments is thou shalt not murder. Mass uncontrolled abortion up to birth is mass murder, in my view, and it's about the destruction of our people.
Right?
It is.
1.3 billion and counting.
Ouch.
Wow. Since 1970.
The People's Voice on the Community Channel on TVU with Adam Stevenson and our awesome guest, Mr. Paul Rimmer from the British First organization in the UK. We'll have you again. Thank you, sir.
Amen, and God bless. Maybe we could bring Paul Golding on if you could talk to him. That'd be great.
Yeah, he'd love to. I'm sure he'd love to appear on. I'll be finished now. Is it only a short